Hey everybody, welcome to the seaside. It's a really nice... Oh no, it's a wall. Sorry, I got confused. Oh, there it is. Hey everybody. I'm just out on the Lexmoto Aura 125cc scooter that I currently have on loan from Lexmoto. Somewhere around there, unless it's been nicked. There it is! There it is! Hello. However, I don't want to talk about the Lexmoto today. I've already done the review for that. What I want to talk about today is electric bikes and the sort of viabilities and some things that have happened and, you know, just a bit of this and that. You'll see as I go on. Now, I want to make my point clear here that I don't necessarily think that electric bikes are going to be the future, although it looks like that's the way the government wants to do things. I don't know if it's necessarily better for the environment and stuff like that. I'm not saying that. When I review electric bikes, I review them as a bike that exists. I review it for what it is and not for what it isn't, if you know what I mean. However, this video is going to talk about some of the viability stuff of the electric bikes, particularly the batteries, because obviously one of the things that has been sort of, you know, organised between some manufacturers and talked about and people like the idea of is swappable batteries, in the sense that you can pull into a petrol station or equivalent, you take your battery out your bike, you grab one from them that's fully charged and you stick it in your bike and off you go. So it's just as fast as filling up with petrol. Now, the thing that I suddenly realised the other day when I was sort of sat thinking about this and like, how does the whole infrastructure work like that, is, well, doesn't that then mean that instead of needing, say, 1,000 batteries for 1,000 bikes that the person just charges themselves, you need a minimum of 2,000 batteries. You need 1,000 for each bike, 1,000 as one charging for each bike, and then you're going to need extras for, you know, ones that break, ones that get dropped, because if people are taking these in and out of bikes and they're heavy, they're going to drop them. Battery packs don't like impacts, like being dropped. You know, they are known for having a bit of a fiery temper, we might say. But it's just interesting to sort of think about the logistics of this. And I actually spoke to one of the chaps I know who works in the motorcycle industry, in electric bikes, and sort of said, what do you think on this? Like, what is the known about what's going to happen with this? And the answer generally is that no one really knows what's going to happen with electric bikes. Everyone's just trying to go with the most viable options they can think of. I can't undertake you, but you're on the wrong side of the road. Let's go this way instead. So to have swappable batteries, you know, may not be such a viable, likely thing to happen because of the sheer extra quantity of materials you're going to need, opposed to maybe having a slightly bigger battery in each bike that stays in that bike. So say you make the battery in the bike 1.5 times the size it would normally be, you get more range out of it, opposed to having to have double it to have the same range but easier, quicker charging, if you see my point. But then that knocks out the entire point of the replaceable batteries that people want. You know, they want that ease of switching batteries like refilling with petrol. Another side to the swappable batteries that people might not have considered is the overall size that each battery can be. Single person lifts by health and safety are basically 25 kilos, I believe now. So you can't actually expect a customer to lift a 30-40 kilo battery out of a bike on their own. That's not considered safe. So you'd have to then have, you know, 220s so they can actually carry it out, and then that's, you know, then you're not having the same sort of energy density because you've got all this extra packaging to keep the battery packs inside safe. There is an awful lot of ins and outs, and like, well, if you do this, well then that, and if you do that, well then this, about the whole electric thing. But yeah, so this is one of the things that came up, was talking about the logistics of the swappable battery, something that we can definitely know, and that is that if you want to swap them, it seems you're going to need an awful lot of extra batteries, more than you would necessarily have needed if people just had them in the bike they have. Now, apparently there are countries in the world where this works, where there are places where you can have an electric bike, you go into a place to swap the battery and you carry on. The key difference about those countries, though, is that they don't use motorcycles like we do in the UK, mostly for leisure. You know, they are happy to slowly get from A to B, and they don't need to go that far, so an electric works out fine for them. However, as I say, in this country where motorcycling is leisure, everyone wants fast, and they don't just want fast, they want fast for a long time. You know, what mileage do you want? I want 200 miles out of a tank. Okay, and how many miles will you actually regularly use? About 25. Or 50 or 100. You know, they're very rarely actually going into those extreme ranges that they demand of electric bikes. which is fair enough. It's early days. People are like saying, well, you know, for me, it's going to have to do this before I'd be interested. And it will do that eventually. I mean, this is the other thing. The individual batteries being 25 kilos each, I don't know if increased power density is going to fix that problem, because obviously the more power dense a battery is, it tends to be more... sorry, I'm just being distracted by the irony of seeing electric scooters with kids on them riding on the road, which are completely illegal. That's the whole entire subject of its own, actually. The whole interesting subject is that they're illegal unless they're rented, because they're currently testing that. So long story short, with the swappable battery idea, I thought it was a pretty viable idea. Thought it was a good idea, gets around the problem of fast charging and all that. And then I suddenly thought about it, well, hang on a minute, no, it doesn't really work out, does it? And as it turns out, it is a bit of an unknown currently in people who are developing these bikes and knowing, you know, which way will electric bikes go in the future? Are they gonna use multiple small batteries? Are they gonna use larger batteries? Are they gonna use replaceable batteries, non-replaceable? Obviously the price and everything has to come down and the durability has to go up, although a lot of people think that they cost thousands and thousands and last 10 minutes. Yes, okay, they cost about a third of the cost of the bike that you buy, and that tends to be reasonably universal. But I mean, like companies like Zero offer, was it 100 or 200,000 miles before it loses 15% of its battery or something like that? They don't die in 5 minutes. And that's going to get better as well, as advanced, because this is the thing to remember, all of these, we're going to wander down there, all of these different types of batteries have individual small cells inside them, and it depends on those cells' power density as to how much power you're going to get in the box. You know, if it's full of 18650s, for instance, and they're only, you know, 1000 milliamp hours, I know it's very low, but I'm using an example, if you then put the 2000s in, it will take up the same space, you'll get double the power. You know what I mean. It's not necessarily that linear, but it will probably weigh quite a lot more. So as technology increases and we make lighter and lighter batteries, and by the way, if you're wondering what the hell this all is, I have a video talking about the relics of World War II. This is what this all is. It's getting uncovered a lot more recently. I hadn't seen all that bit of stuff before. Anyway, sorry, sidetracking, I just know people are going to ask. Yeah, the power density of these batteries, that's going to change things in the future. And batteries are getting smaller and they are getting more power dense. You know, the days of a laptop battery being like this big and lasting for 4 hours is gone. Now batteries are thin and last for days. Well, not days, but, you know, a day, depending on what sort of tech it's in. So it's all progressing and we don't really know where it's going to go. But what we can say is batteries are going to hold more and they're going to be smaller and cheaper and probably lighter, and they're probably also going to be better for the environment. That's the whole aim and hope. How quickly that comes to fruition and whether it turns out being the best thing to do is an entirely another thing separately. I don't know. Because you've even got to consider the things of like, well, how do you get the rare earth minerals that you need, elements, to make the batteries for them, you know? Is that going to be viable? Can we recycle them that easily? Can you get like the lithium out of lithium batteries without losing too much of it or losing its purity or its viability for reuse? I mean, I assume, given that it is a metal, you can purify it. And I do think we've reached a point now that we do have fast electric bikes which you can do enough miles, and they do what a petrol will do speed and performance wise, but they just won't quite have the full mileage, but probably enough, but they're very expensive. And then you have the cheaper, slower side of the electric market, which, you know, it gets you from A to B. It's not that quick, but it's not nearly as expensive. You know, and the companies that are picking up on stuff like that are like delivery companies, and through COVID and all that, whether, you know, like, I don't know, the Just Eat or the Deliveroo, all those different, you know, Pizza Hut, I don't know I'm sure they do. We don't get much deliveries around here. It's all too small. I definitely think those sorts of companies could see viability in smaller bikes, and also the swappable batteries, because they can have their own batteries set on charge. You know, if they've got 10 bikes in a fleet, for instance, 10 bikes, 20 batteries they're charging while the person's out delivering, and it will last long enough for it to charge for the time that they're out, presumably. So that's one side of it. Another little side to the electric battery discussion I thought was quite interesting. Jake, the garden snake, good mate of mine, brought this up talking about, in a recent video talking about what's KTM up to. Looking at KTM's lineup, he was talking about one of their electric bikes, and he was talking about water cooling electrics, because electric bikes do overheat. I'm not sure if it's the motor, the control unit, the battery, what actually is overheating there. I would be interested to know on a Zero, like, what overheats when they overheat? Is it the speed controller? Is it the battery? Is it the motor? What is it? But anyway, on to my point. Jake was saying about how it would be good for these sorts of bikes to get water cooling, but he thought that that would mean that you cannot have removable swappable batteries if you have water cooling that's going through the battery. And I disagree. We have things called I think they're called zero loss quick disconnectors for fluids that, you know, you connect and disconnect off the battery. So when you take the battery out of the bike, you take the positive and the negative off, you unclip these two water hoses, like in a quick disconnect for a PC, take out the battery, pop the new one in, put the power plugs back on, click on the water cooling. It'll have to have some sort of system to bleed at the top there. But yeah, that's it. You know, it would keep that coolant inside the battery, the other coolant stay inside the hoses, and you wouldn't have a problem with having swappable batteries with water cooling. I think that's doable. Now, I'm sure a lot of you are like, I don't care, I don't want them anyway. Well, I know you don't, and I know we haven't actually put bikes into the 2035 ban of combustion engines that actually only applies to things like vans and lorries and cars and stuff like that. It doesn't apply to bikes. And also, you're allowed to have a hybrid, so you can have a petrol engine in a car as long as you've got a little motor in there somewhere combining a bit that it's classed as a hybrid. So it's not like they're completely getting rid of the combustion engine when they do that, but it's working its way towards there. And bikes are actually more viable, I think, to become electric vehicles than cars in ways. Maybe, I mean, more so on the small cc scale. But yeah, I'm now at Tesco's, as if you didn't know this was where I was going to end up. Let me know what you think on any of that. Have you got any information that's, you know, well, as I say, at the moment, a lot of things is very much opinion based, and even if you do know the subject deeply, it's still an opinion of what might happen. Admittedly, they can be much more educated than mine, and mine's not that educated. But I'd love to know, yeah, what do you think on it? Anything to add? If you enjoyed this video, smack the like button, subscribe if you're new here. If you'd like to help consider supporting this channel through Patreon, do that. Otherwise, I will catch you in the next one. And tomorrow I have an interesting bike to review, so yeah, you'll see. Catch you next time.